Hello, my friends. Welcome to EdTech with Adam. We're kicking it off with a series on collaborative annotation. Now, this is really important these days because we cannot have our face-to-face classes. We really need to be able to give our students an opportunity to interact as they're doing assignments, and this really helps students with scaffolding, so learning from one another, building off of one another, and really doing stuff that is important for them to reach their learning goals. So we're going to start off with Kami app, and Kami app actually was recommended to me by a group of math teachers at the Blended Canada conference last year. So we're going to start off with that one today. As you can see from the table, we have a whole series of things that makes a good collaborative annotation app. Now remember, I'm not going to be looking at only annotations. I'm specifically looking at what allows students to work together in an online environment. And so we're going to start off with the most basic thing, annotations and the ability to respond to annotations. So you can see here I loaded something up. This is from openstacks.org, a free textbook repository, lots of really wonderful textbooks developed there. And this is from the astronomy book. Now, keep in mind when you're doing this collaborative annotation, this could apply to anything from arts, English, even math, as you can see here. And here, let's just take a look. So I want to annotate something, and I'm not going to go into a lot of depth here. I just want to show you how it works. To annotate something on the basic level here in this interface, we have a bunch of the normal tools we see in a lot of places, so just the cursor and selection tools. But instead of marking up or highlighting, we want to go to comment here. This is going to enable the annotation tools. And the first one here is a text comment, which is pretty much the standard we're going to be working with here. So let's just take this first sentence here, just highlight it, and we get a little pop-up that asks us to annotate this. So let's say if I'm a student and I say, this is something I learned at Space Camp last year. Wonderful. Now, after we annotate here, let's click enter. So I've annotated this in, it's all in. So now other students will be able to come in and reply to this. So I actually have another student already loaded in here, and you can see from the student's view automatically this annotation is done. And that means that the browser's refreshing here constantly, which is good because not all apps have this feature. Sometimes you have to press F5 or reload the browser. So as a student here, I'm just going to write in, wow, that's amazing. I went to Space Camp 2. And you can see here that it's just like a typical annotation. And again, we see this same kind of style. We'll see this a lot throughout this series here. A similar style of these conversations going on the side of the screen, very similar to what you'd see in Google Docs or Microsoft Word or anything like that. Now, let's go through and let's just create a couple more annotations, maybe as a student. Now, you see here, I have to first select on the annotation tool first. And then here we go. I get to add an annotation. Wow, cool. Let's add another annotation here and say, this is something important to me because. So maybe as a teacher, we'll be asking our students to respond to this and write up something maybe a little lengthier as a response. So let's go back to our main account here. You can see that we have some annotations. I'm just adding another one, adding another annotation. Really doesn't matter what I'm going to say here, because now what we'd like to do is see if we can differentiate these. Now, something that is a little bit, you see here, I clicked on here to get rid of that and it popped up something. So let's just close that there. Now, one thing about this is, as you can see, all of the different annotations have the same highlight color. And I think down here we can actually select some different colors for this. So for example, I could select it in red, annotating in a different color. And hopefully, as you can see here, this allows us to maybe make some distinctions. But if all the students in the class have not selected their own color, how can we differentiate? And this is another thing on our list. Can we differentiate between different students' annotations? This is very important for us, right? And so, for example, here in Kami, you can actually highlight over or just hold your mouse over top of the annotations, and they will tell you who did the annotations. You can see here that the question mark is the guest user, AS is myself, and here again, once again, we see it's myself. Now, this is a little bit tedious if you have to go through the entire thing, but it is useful if you want to go through and just see who said what. But down here, you can also see that if we click on these different spots here, we can actually filter out which user said what. Now, the one problem I have with Kami app here is that when an annotation is a response to another annotation, or in that case, it's not really an annotation, it's a response. But either way, as a teacher, I just want to count my students' participation. I want to say that this student, they responded at least 3 times, or they commented 3 times, or participated at least 3 times in this. In this main interface, we can't really do that. But if we go into Canvas or into Google Classroom, or one of the other interfaces, like as you can see here, we have this also loaded up in Canvas as well, and it looks very much the same. It's just the Kami app window loaded into Canvas. If we do this, we can actually assign students to make a certain amount of comments, or they'll have to respond or submit their work. And what you'll get as a teacher is when you go into SpeedGrader, you'll get a copy of that student's basically all their annotations, so their page will have all their markups on it, and you'll be able to give them a grade. I can open up SpeedGrader here. I don't have a submission here, but I could give them a grade, and I could add a comment like good job or what have you, based on the annotations they've made in their own work. But that's more so for individual annotations, or you can do it for group annotations, but it's a little bit complicated in Kami app. You actually have to get your students to share links to their assignment to other students in order for them to work together as a group and then submit it as a group, which makes it a little bit more tricky to grade, but that's one of the challenges with Kami app then. Now the next thing is, are you able to edit the original text as a teacher or as a student? And here, as you can see, we can't really go, we can make text boxes and we can comment over it and highlight it and all kinds of stuff like that, but we can't edit down. Now that's actually a good thing, because in some cases, if you want to do collaborative writing, then yeah, it's great to be able to have different people delete and change and so on and so forth. But if you're teaching a class and you want the resource to remain as is, it's important to actually get it so that people can't delete it or change it. So that's actually something working in Kami app's favor here. Now let's talk about some of the different types of annotations we can do. So once again, in the annotations, we have the text comments, which we've tried. There are also voice comments. So if you want to give verbal feedback, for example, if this is something, perhaps a student uploaded one of their videos here, because you can actually insert YouTube videos, things like that as well. So for example, if I take the video here from Kami app about sharing with Kami in Canvas, I can go back to my Kami app window and make a new annotation. You can use the text comment for this and just paste the YouTube address in here, and it'll actually load the video in the window. If a student uploaded something to YouTube or something like that, they could go in, put it in here, and then as a teacher, perhaps you could go in here and give them some audio feedback. So you could go in and, for example, highlight some part of it that maybe is related to what they're making a comment on. And you can see here we can actually do an audio comment. This is me making an audio comment. Let's see if we can hear that back. This is me making an audio comment. So that's very useful. It means I can go in there, I can make some audio comments as well. You can see here I accidentally click the X button, which deletes it. So if I want to do that again, let's try not to delete it this time.
Let's try not to delete it this time.
Okay, this time I didn't delete it. And also that's kind of a cool feature as well. You can see you can delete things very easily here. If you want to get rid of one of your annotations, you can go in, you can delete stuff. And fortunately here, you can see that you cannot delete other people, so you don't have to worry about your students deleting another student's annotation or comment. Let's try another way of leaving an annotation. So we could do a video annotation as well. So again, if the students want to, instead of uploading something to YouTube, they could just go right here and they could use the video comment, the video annotation, and highlight something and make a video. So I just went and made a video annotation off camera for a second here, and you can see how easily that was to put in and how your students also could easily use video to annotate their work or other students' work or anything like that.
So it's this easy to just go in and make your own video annotation.
Now there's also a tool here for screen capture. However, for that you need to install some other plugins for Chrome. And that's something that you could, of course, always just do by using the snipping tool within Windows and then going in and doing something like inserting an image. And when you insert an image, the same way you can also go in and insert things like, if I find a lovely picture here. Look at this handsome picture. I can insert this image as well. And if I had taken this as like a snip, as a screenshot, I could have done that as well. And that kind of saves a step because I know that when we're working maybe with school district computers or university computers, they don't want to install every single extension that's going to happen. So this might not be something that works very well for your personal situation and for your student situation. But there are very easy ways around that. So the next important thing to consider here is about compliancy and where this works. So I'm from Canada and we have something called FIPA. And what it is something that says that if we want to have these kinds of programs in Canada, we need to make sure that data is stored on Canadian servers. Most of the time, school districts and universities adhere to that, but I know in a lot of cases, a lot of school districts are having a lot of issues. They're in emergency situations. Some of them are just using Google Classroom anyways, even though it's stored in America. However, Kami app, as far as I can see, because they're very reliant on Google Drive and Google in particular, they don't really have the guarantee that things are stored on Canadian servers. Now, that being said, Google does have Canadian servers, and there might be a way that your IT team at your school or your university could set up, for example, some things so that the students' Google Drives and things like that were based out of Canada, which means it would be FIPA compliant. However, my university at the University of British Columbia and other school districts I know have not quite come to terms with Google yet in terms of being able to use it in Canada. Now, if you're in the States, this isn't a problem because Kami app is FERPA compliant, which is the American FIPA alternative there. So there's no worries about that. But again, if your school's in a state of emergency and they're just using whatever, this could be something you might be able to use in Canada. And if you really like it, you could try to get some workaround put in place. Now, in terms of what you can bring in to Kami app, we can, as we saw, we could use PDFs. You can copy and paste HTMLs from websites. You can bring in pictures, as you can see here, which is very useful. For example, if you're teaching math, you could just input some math worksheet here. And while there are math functions, so you can just click on these and put it somewhere, and you can use these math equations. And like I said, I first heard about this from math teachers because they really like that there's a drawing feature here, and it allows students to, on a worksheet, if the worksheet was something like 1 + 2 = for maybe primary school or something like that, in that case, students can actually go in, use the drawing tool, and draw here. And I know a lot of teachers, they want to actually have students drawing out the answers because they want to make sure their parents aren't coming in and just typing in the answers or something like that. And that's actually a really important thing also, that ComyApp allows you to have drawn annotations in additional to the typed annotations, because it can maybe circumvent some of the worries that teachers might have that their students aren't actually doing the work, because clearly this is a student's writing. So finally, let's talk about compatibility. And this is very important because, again, lots of school districts are moving to some certain learning management systems. We know that Ontario in Canada is on Brightspace, and some areas are moving all to Canvas, and a majority of the United States, they have Google Classroom going on. ComyApp is available in Schoology, Canvas, and Google Classroom, which again meets the needs of a majority of people. But most importantly, it also has a standalone feature. So like this right now, what I'm using is on the ComyApp website, and you could potentially go through and share this with your students and have your students make accounts for ComyApp and get into your class. And that would also work as well. So if you're a teacher that does not have access to a learning management system, you're kind of being hung out to dry right now, this would be a very interesting alternative. All right, that's it for this video. I hope everyone got an idea of what this app does, how it works, whether it would work for your situation. And as I said, in this series, we're going to be talking about a bunch of different collaborative annotation apps, and hopefully at the end of it you'll have an idea of what you might want to use. And I'll also be doing a comparison where we can look side by side at some of these apps, how they differ and how they might work in different scenarios. If you have any problems in regards to education technology that you'd like me to touch upon, let me know in the comments below. If you like this, please leave it a like. If you want to see more of these, please subscribe. And you know, I believe that eventually we'll be able to really make this online learning system, or at least blended learning, work really well, because, you know, learning is everything and everything is learning. Once again, I'm Adam, and stay healthy.